So fellas, look, I've trained for strength, I've trained for size, and I've gotten great results following either style of training. And there are some things that I just have to get off my chest. What are the differences between the two? Why do one over the other? And are you even training for your goal effectively? I want to talk about that all today and then wrap it in a bow to help you along with your journey. So let's get the obvious out of the way. First and foremost, if you want to train for size, and that is your main goal, you bodybuild. You work towards that goal. And much the same, if your goal is to get as strong as possible, as quickly as possible, you strength train. That should be obvious. I shouldn't need to tell you that. All right, so boom. Take a hypertrophy-minded fella. There is a guy out here that wants to get bigger, that will absolutely get bigger faster on a good strength training program. And then the opposite will be true for a fella that wants to get stronger. How can that make sense? The reason being, bro, is that nothing in their process, or very little, actually contributes to their goals. They just do so many things wrong or don't maximize actually working towards a particular goal. They're just kind of aimlessly lifting weights. These are the hypertrophy minded guys that want to be big and lean, but they don't train their back or their legs hard. They half-ass their isolations, if they even do them at all. Their form is not conducive to what they're trying to build, so they're squatting in a way that doesn't work their legs. They're doing movements that feel good when they know damn well they're only doing them because they can lift a lot of weight. Then on the opposite end of the spectrum, you got your strength training guys that can't resist maxing out every time they go to the freaking gym, or doing grinder sets every time they go to the gym, or again, half-assing their accessories, if they even do them at all. Lots of people that are strength-minded don't see the need to hit their triceps directly or to do accessory work. They think it's only the big compound movements. You have fellas on either end of the spectrum that are so shitty in their process and just not doing basic things well, that if they took what they're doing and then just did the opposite thing but did it well, they would make way better gains in either strength or size. Both of these goddamn guys think that their way is the way, and that's the problem. They look at guys that are actually out here getting shit done and assume that things are going to be the same for them because they share a common goal, and then they just neglect doing everything right. The key takeaway here is to audit your process. Now, before someone takes what we just talked about and misconstrues it, you are absolutely going to get bigger faster on a well-written hypertrophy program, and you're going to get stronger faster on a well-written strength training program. But if you do a shitty version of either, you're going to get worse results. Which actually kind of brings me into my next point, bro. This is something that I really just wish people would be more open to accepting. You can fit bodybuilding exercises onto a strength training program and vice versa. Just because you have less total training economy, less experience points to spend on things that aren't related to your main goal, does not mean that you don't have any room to do so. So that all sounds good, all right? So give me specifics. Okay, so you can take hack squats, long head of the tricep work, bicep work. These are all bodybuilding staples. Guess what? A lot of good strength training programs at the highest level include all of those things. And they're able to progress them, stay with me now, the exact same way that you would on a bodybuilding program. There's just less total room to work on absolutely every odds and ends that you could have on a bodybuilding program. They follow the same double progressions, dynamic double progressions. They all follow similar bodybuilding progressions that you're used to hearing me shout from the rooftops on this goddamn channel are effective for getting bigger. And then with bodybuilding training, bro, there's still that element of carryover. There's still that element of, I do this exercise so that I can do a better job at this exercise. There's a reason why in a lot of bodybuilding programs, motherfuckers are out here doing squats to make their leg extensions better. They're doing bench press to be better at pec flies. There's a reason why people just don't do isolation movements for bodybuilding. One is because compound movements are great for hypertrophy. That's another talking point that I just need to talk about, bro, because I feel like some shit gets conflated in a way that isn't totally on. So you're fucking dreaming, bro. If you take the same standard of form on a pec fly, all other things being equal, you do 3 sets of 10 with 40 pounds versus 3 sets of 10 with 60 pounds. The same form, the same cadence, the same everything, the same progression. Which of those people is going to be bigger? They have the same genetics. It's an easy fucking question, bro. The guy that is more performant is going to be better. This brings me back to that point of auditing your process and just being real with yourself. There are plenty of guys that train for size that do less effective hypertrophy work than fellas that train for strength that I know. And then consequently to that, they're way less jacked. Their muscles are smaller. They don't weigh as much. They're not as big and lean. On the opposite end, you have fellas that train for strength that think bodybuilding is just a worthless pursuit, that are way weaker than some fucking Johnny bodybuilders I know. This next talking point, I feel, it just addresses some nuance that I don't feel is accurately represented a lot of time. I'm just gonna keep it a buck. If we take our compound movements through a big range of motion, we make sure that they're targeting the muscles that we want to target, and you get better at them, your muscles are going to get bigger, and they're going to get a lot bigger than you may think. So there are fellas that just think that, oh, well, I saw this guy and he got to whatever squat, and he got to that squat and his legs weren't big. Well, how did he do the squat? I find it very hard to believe that someone could do a squat with good forward knee travel, pause at the bottom, and their legs don't get bigger from that. People do squats, don't use their legs, there's no forward knee travel, they use a ton of posterior chain, and then they don't get big legs from that. It's almost like we look at powerlifting lifts done to a powerlifting standard and use them to judge movement patterns or styles of training as a whole. It's a very effective tactic that people use when they want to swing the pendulum, and it can be used for good, so it can get people to look at certain things in their training that they're not doing. But what it doesn't do is it doesn't paint the accurate picture. Here's the thing, fellas. If you do a close grip Larson press, a good high bar squat with good forward knee travel, and you aren't stripper squatting it, stiff leg deadlifts, weighted pull-ups with a pause at the top and a dead hang, every single one of the movements is going to get you bigger muscles in your prime movers. End of story, bro. The commonality between all of those variations is that we're moving big weights through a big range of motion. That's honestly what, like, the first edition of the Berserk method, which I'm going to be updating in a couple weeks. Stay tuned for that, the 2023 edition. But that's what that first edition was largely based around. These self-limiting variations. Those are all movements that are big compound movements, but because of the way that we're doing them, we can't add weight as quickly. We can't add it as immediately as we could if we arched a bunch or did a sumo deadlift with bumper plates and a deadlift bar and straps. They force you to accumulate volume for longer to be able to progress on them. What the fuck does that sound like? It sounds like what you do on a bodybuilding program. And that was my way of taking these lifts and skewing them towards hypertrophy as much as I could. Don't turn your back on these big movement patterns. Do a variation that suits your goals, and make sure that your form, your input with this exercise meets those goals. If it doesn't, you check yourself. You don't toss out a fucking exercise because you have soup sandwich form. So we talked about a lot of the commonalities. We talked about the truth of the matter on a lot of things. How do I ensure, going back full circle to the very first 30 seconds of the video, I want to train for size. How do I bias that? How do I train for strength and bias that? It's very simple, bro. There are two things that you keep in mind. One, for size training, you accumulate sets, reps, and then weight. You exhaust everything that you can progress in and then weight. Progressive overload is such that if you do something more than last time, your muscles are going to get bigger, whether that's doing more work in less time, more sets, more reps, or more weight. You chase all four of those. You just don't chase weight. You're not going to get as big only chasing weight because, one, it's only one means of progressive overload, and two, you're not going to just be able to add 5 pounds to the bar every time. You'll be able to for a little while, but then you'll notice that your form will start to degrade. And then that will lead to a movement that isn't as consistent with the type of stimulus that it's giving you. Then the only thing on top of that, bro, is your form. Do not have soup sandwich form. If you do a stiff-legged deadlift and you don't feel your hamstrings, you don't feel your back, but you feel your quads a little bit because you're squatting into it, newsflash, fella, you're not doing fucking stiff-legged deadlifts. You're doing some mutant conventional deadlift that isn't really targeting anything that you want it to. Okay, I say all that to just be funny and say that make sure that you're targeting your muscles effectively and that you maintain a good standard of form. You do all the things right with progressing in sets, reps, volume, and then weight. But if your form is garbage and it's not actually targeting the muscle, your muscle is not going to get bigger the way that you think it will. Wrapping that all up, you want to take as many exercises in your program and target them to attack each of those things we just talked about. Now with strength training, it's all about creating momentum in your training so that you continue to add weight consistently over time, and then practicing the lifts that you're trying to get better at often enough to get better at them. You want to be doing enough of that thing to get better at that thing. And if you're not doing enough of that thing, you do more of it, okay? It's very fucking simple. So what that looks like is you do bench multiple times per week, you squat multiple times per week, and you don't fucking max out every time. You make sure that you're doing a little bit more each week, but you're not going to failure until it's time to hit a fucking PR, bro. I've used the analogy before. My buddy Sam came up with it. I think it's fucking brilliant. It's a battering ram. How much momentum are you going to gain by taking one step back and then trying to shove that shit forward? Not very much, right? You're going to tap the castle wall, okay? You're not going to siege the castle wall. All right, now what if you, stay with me now, run it back and then run it forward? Is the castle wall going to get sieged? Yes, it is. Now, if you fellas want templates, examples of each of those styles of training under each and every one of my videos, fuck the training playlist. Forget all the programming stuff that I make all the time. There are 2 free programs, Skull King and Raider. One's for general strength, one is skewed more towards hypertrophy. You run those, they're customizable, they come with FAQs, how to customize them. Bro, you run any of those and you're gonna be good to go. So if you're a hypertrophy guy, run my hypertrophy program, and then if you wanna get stronger, you run the strength program. All right, cool story, bro. Which is better? I'm not gonna tell you which is better because a lot of people don't like hearing this, but it just depends upon your goals, right? You just wanna make sure that you're actually working towards that goal effectively, and that's what the rest of the video was for. I can tell you what I prefer personally these days though. Again, this comes from a background and I've done calisthenics only. I've done long distance running. I have done strength training. I have done freaking hypertrophy training. And I've gotten good at each of those things. I prefer hypertrophy training just because it's a lot more fluid than a lot of those things. I personally prefer hypertrophy training because I like going to failure often, okay? I don't like leaving reps in the tank. And listen, I coach people. My job is pacing out people's training. I don't like going to the gym, doing a compound lift, and leaving reps in the tank. There are fellas that have found success with that, like for example, Dan Green. But one, I'm natural and I stay pretty lean, meaning I don't necessarily have the same training resources as someone else that is bloat maxed or they take PEDs. It just is what it is. So I can't go to failure and recover the same way and then still create momentum in my strength training. Despite that, I've gotten pretty fucking strong, and I can get strong pretty much at the drop of a hat. But I feel like I make faster progress with hypertrophy training because I can pick lifts that have a better stimulus to fatigue ratio that I can just go harder at longer and still make good forward progress. On top of being able to go to failure longer, I get to do a wider variety of movements. I also get to focus more on freaking bodybuilding, bro. Since I'm not training for strength and I don't have to eat up a bunch of slots on my training program for like bench variations and then squat variations and then deadlift variations. All of those things that we're doing enough of to get better at, I can do shit like ring work. I can do guillotine press. I can do a bench day if I want to do a bench day, which I'm doing currently. I then can also work my arms a ton. Bro, I love training arms. I can do my pull-ups. I can do my rows. I can focus on working muscle groups and movement patterns as opposed to specific movements that are just going to dominate my program. That's just me, bro. So y'all tell me what you think. Which do you prefer? If you have any questions about what we talked about, let me know. Watch these videos now that you've watched this one. Y'all have a good day.